Good morning. Good morning, Andrea. Can you hear me? Good morning, Andrea. Can you hear me?
Good morning. My name's Donna Brothwell.
Hi, Donna.
Hi, Jill.
Where are you from, Donna?
I'm actually from Yorkton, Saskatchewan.
Oh, yay. Nice to see
Yay.
someone from Yorkton. How are
Yeah.
things in Yorkton? Are the farmers out getting on the land today?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we've got a lot of work being done around here that can be done. A lot of spring cleanup. I do walk my dog safely, social distancing, the whole bit. Yeah, so yeah, it's you're starting to see more people out and whatnot, but getting the economy back rolling is a good thing.
Are you a business owner?
Actually, I'm the executive director with the Yorkton Business Improvement District. So we're like a bid district in communities. Does your community have one?
Yeah, I'm in Saskatoon and we've got a few of them here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. So, and even though we're like part of our mandates are communication and beautify the downtown and stuff like that. So I am still working from home online as much as I can. I've found very easy to do a lot of Zoom meetings. If you check out our webpage, I've got about four of them up right now on different perspectives on how COVID has affected the businesses. So it's really quite cool.
Good.
The way to
Yeah,
use Zoom.
yeah, it's been a steep learning curve for all of us, I think.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I certainly understand that.
Good morning, Jill. It's Andrea here.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi. We're just we're waiting for some more people yet. People are just starting to get connected here. So
Great. Yeah, I think that the cold March and April that we had, we're going to look back and say that was the best thing that ever happened to us. But I think everybody's ready to get outside and feel a little bit more optimistic. And when you see farmers in the fields, that's always a good sign too.
Yeah, the business owners are really excited to get back, prepping themselves. I've heard very few that are not wanting to go yet. Some skepticism on the hairdresser side, just because you're touching, and how is that reopening and being safe and that type of thing going to look for them. So, we've been chatting quite a bit with the businesses just to keep them um, informed and let them know what's going on and how they can where to find those rules.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's going to be a new normal, right? And
Right.
we just have to adjust for now.
my family, uh, we've had a lot of um, not has been as affected. My daughter-in-law is about the only one really affected. She works in the Sunrise Health region. She's part of their admin team. So, but they've been able to set her up at home. So, having done that, I don't get to see my granddaughter very much except through video chats. So, I miss her desperately. But the rest of my family's still working, still, still part of that frontline service that's been going on. So it's been all right. Nobody's sick. Everybody's good. So what are your Saskatoon cases like right now? Because you're pretty good, hey Jill? Oh, we lost her.
It's going to change quickly here.
Sorry, you cut out there for a little bit.
Yeah, I think I need to make some changes here. My internet, just a moment.
Mm.
We're just waiting for the rest of the people who have registered to join us. I'm just watching, so there's a few more people yet to come. And then we'll wait for Jill to get back with us.
I'm back on, hopefully.
There we go.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We had some internet problems this morning, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that things are okay. There was an outage somewhere in the area, so.
I'm trying to set up on a different device and I can't find the video on the second one. And how do I get rid of the first one?
I think if you mute yourself too, you won't get that feedback.
Jill, you guys have had some internet issues?
Yes, we switched to Shaw and they had some outages this morning. So just keeping our fingers crossed that it'll last a while here.
Are you guys finding that things are slow in the afternoons anywhere? Okay, so it's not just me.
No, I think that's when the teenagers wake up and everything's a mess when they're awake.
So, yeah.
More usage in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm going to put myself on mute, guys, just to limit noise. Andrea and Jill, do you want video or non? Does it matter?
It's up to you, whatever your personal preference is. Unless Jill feels differently, if you want to see who you're talking to.
Yeah. Whatever works is fine. It's not always able, or the internet connections aren't always good for people with video. So
yeah, and it looks like there's some people that are maybe having some trouble, like they pop in for a minute and then they pop back out. So I think maybe we should just give them a minute here.
Pretty amazing how much we've learned in a very short time, I think, as well, too.
Absolutely.
You realize when you are talking with some friends going, why did we not do this before? We weren't really thinking.
Yeah,
I'm used to the phone cord around the corner, from hiding away in my bedroom. I've just dated myself, I think.
I was telling someone earlier today that I read an article just last night about Zoom fatigue is now a thing. And it talks about how with all these Zoom meetings, it's actually much more tiring than a face-to-face in-person meeting, because you don't normally, you know, stare at a person's face from 3 feet away for a whole meeting, right? So if you wonder why you're exhausted after spending a day in meetings like this, that might be why.
I find
I-
my interviews, as interesting that they are, you still have to prepare for them. You still have to talk to the person ahead of time and let them know what the questions are. So there's a lot of prep time, and then the interview goes by in like 15 minutes, and we end up chatting a little bit afterwards before I post it. And the interviewees are like, "Oh, I'm so nervous. This is exhausting." So yes, it can be.
Andrea, do we want to start with some introductions and get things rolling?
I think, yes, why don't we? I'm just responding to one of the chats here, but yeah, I think if we probably could, for sure. Yeah, so I'm just going to stop sharing. So good morning, everyone. Can you see me? I'm thinking you can, or hoping you can. My name's Andrea Brady, and I'm the Regional Economic Development Coordinator here at Community Futures Sunrise in Weyburn. Our office has been closed for several weeks now, and I'm sure most of you are the same. So I'm actually in the office today, however, just to have the best internet connectivity. And we've seen already this morning that maybe things on this Friday, the internet decided to start the weekend early, maybe. We are really pleased to have partnered with Community Futures Sage Hill on this to bring Jill Sauter to you. Jill is going to introduce herself, and I'll let her do that because she would be much better at doing it. For those of you who don't know, there's actually 13 Community Futures offices within the province, and the mandate is to provide loans, support, and advice to rural entrepreneurs. If you've been on the meeting here for a few moments, I had the homepage for CF Sask up, so you can see all the different offices there, and I would urge you to check it out, and then you can see the office for your applicable region as well. The government recently just announced a Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, the RRRF, and that is a fund that is going to be administered by Community Futures offices. However, we don't have any details yet. So if you're a small business owner and you'd like to stay in the loop on that or get some information when it's available, I would urge you to contact the office that is closest to you. And I'm sure they can put you on a list, because I know we're going to be keeping a list as well of interested people. So I'll let Jill tell you about herself. But first, just a couple housekeeping items. And if you're in the chat, you saw I did put a note in there about if you could keep yourself on mute, that would be great, just to cut down on the feedback. But Jill wants this to be interactive. So if you do want to ask her a question, unmute yourself, or if you want to use the little hand raise thing, or if you want to just put it in the chat and I can interrupt her and ask the question, that would be fine as well. Any of those options are great. And otherwise, I'll let Jill do that. And we are going to record this. So afterwards, Jenny at Sage Hill, she'll be sending out another email through Eventbrite with the recording link and some other information for you. So if you've missed some of it, or you're kind of running back and forth, as I see some of you are, don't worry, you won't miss out. So I'll let Jill take it away.
Great. Thanks, Andrea. Thank you for having me today. I think that businesses have just been going through a ton of different things. And when we talked about having this webinar, we had lots of feedback from people that we knew, from business owners, that there were some challenges out there. And so I wanted to just chat with you a little bit about the way that I see things and tell you some things that I've been seeing. My background, I have a practice in marketing, so I help small businesses with marketing as a consultant. But I do have a background when I lived away from Saskatchewan. I moved back. When I moved back, I started working with Western Economic Diversification as a small business advisor. So I was helping with marketing, but I was also helping with marketing in the context of the rest of the business. So I understand how small business works. I understand the pressures on entrepreneurs, and I also understand that right now is a challenging time, and lots of businesses need to look for different opportunities and new ways of doing things. And sometimes that doesn't come easily, especially if you're in the mire of the urgent problems. What do I do with my team? Can I open? Donna was just mentioning earlier on the call that some businesses are challenged by how to open, how to maintain social distancing and the cleanliness standards that are expected. So lots of challenges for small businesses, and I wanted to have a chance to provide some inspiration and some ways of thinking about opportunities so that you can move forward. And so I see we're getting some more participants. Again, as Andrea mentioned, if you have a question, please unmute and ask it, or put something in the chat, and Andrea will interrupt me because I want this to be interactive. I want you to be able to get something from it. So yeah, so I wanted to thank you for coming and for sharing your time with us this morning.
Sounds good, Jill. Thank you. Yes, it looks like we've got, I just admitted a few more people, so I think we've got quite a few with us now. So
Great.
Take it away.
Well, one thing that we discussed when we were talking about the webinar was resiliency, and I think that over the next while, I've been following what's happening in other economies and what's happening in other jurisdictions, and it seems like this is going to be something that happens to us again and again. There are going to be the lockdowns. We've already seen an outbreak in Lloydminster. It's been very contained, so there haven't been any interruptions to the advancement of the opening plan that we have. But as more and more of our population become infected with COVID, we're going to see these lockdowns happen more often. And we really need to be resilient, enabling us to bounce back from being in isolation. And it really immediately, I think the urgency is around people. And I think about people in a number of ways, but for entrepreneurs, there are so many stresses. The first thing that we have to do is make sure that we're getting the help that we need, that we're taking care of ourselves and our families, and we feel comfortable to address business issues. But if we've got a sick family member or someone that we're worried about, we have to take care of that first. Earlier on, I was knocking on the wall here because next door is my homeschool. So we're all dealing with lots of pressures right now. So taking care of that and making sure we can manage those things can be the first step. The second step is the employees. If you have employees in your business, making sure that they're taken care of, doing what you need to do for your business, but also making sure that they're safe and well. I've heard of businesses having to cut back on hours, but supplementing that with buying gift cards for groceries for their employees, just so that they can keep the employees steady and stable and thinking about the work when they're at work, and then being able to focus on family when they're at home. I've also been hearing about small businesses providing summer jobs for employees' kids. So we're still keeping it in a bit of a bubble, but we're also trying to supplement the maybe cut back hours or helping out because families have been cut back over the isolation period. So there's some things like that small businesses have been creatively finding to help their employees. The third group of people to consider, I think, are the customers in the community. What are customers doing? How are they doing? That when things happened really quickly in March, I saw lots of businesses sending out mass emails saying, we're still here, we're still open. And that's important to stay in touch. In some cases, those emails were very impersonal. I'm sure you, like me, were your inbox of your email was flooded with emails telling you what what some service provider was doing to make their employees safe. And really, it didn't matter to me how often they were disinfecting a workstation, but good for you. But I'm glad that they're in business, and I'm glad that they're there to help me when I need them. But the other thing is understanding what's going on in your industry and in your community. We've seen lots of examples of communities, businesses getting involved in the community. Andrea provided an example of Cork and Bone Bistro in Mooseman providing meals for healthcare and frontline workers. So the employees can come by and have a contactless pickup of a meal so that they don't have to go home and worry about what's for dinner. The Prairie Dog Drive-In in Carlisle, they did a drive-through popcorn sale where they sold some of their old stock and they donated the proceeds to the food bank in Carlisle. So they're not only doing something good for their business, but they're also doing something for their community. And I think that we've seen lots of examples of businesses reaching out to help the effort. And that was really prevalent early on in March. We're not seeing that so much now, but because I think businesses are focused on what they need to do for their own business to be able to open up and survive. But I think that it's important for us to consider the community that what we operate in and what's going on. Another thing to consider is the industry. A friend of mine has a business in construction, and there's been lots of lobbying over the period of isolation to make sure that those construction projects are moving ahead. And I think it's important to understand in our industry what's going on. Even in retail, we have people from different organizations that support retail, whether that's a chamber or a business improvement district in the community. Connecting with those people in those organizations can be really helpful in, first of all, knowing that we're not alone, but also understanding what's going on in our community and staying in touch. So I think that those are really big things to help us stay connected, to help us keep a positive attitude and know that we're not alone in this.
Just to add to that, Jill, just to catch you before you move on, I think that's a really, really important point. Yesterday, actually, I took part in our Chamber of Commerce here in Weyburn does a weekly think tank call. And, there was different business owners in there or on that call. And even though, there was a food store, a plumbing store, a survey company, different industries for sure, but they all kind of learned something about, some policies, some practices, some protocols around employees and illnesses and PPE, things like that. And just on that, that hour-long call that they all took away from that. And I thought that was a really good way for them to share resources. And, even though they were different industries and you wouldn't think that a plumbing company and a food store would have anything in common, but they certainly, were able to learn something and learning from each other. And then that makes our community stronger too. So.
Absolutely. I think that, knowing that we're not alone is really important. And we can definitely learn from each other. That's for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You had asked Andrea earlier about the action items and what businesses can do right away to address situations and what needs to be done. And I think we have to look on, especially when we first went into lockdown, there was some immediate needs like worker safety and, there was some layoffs and government programs. I think that understanding the programs that are available is fundamental. It's one of the sort of urgent things that has to be done. And understanding, the second thing is understanding your business situation. And I'm not sure, when I work with businesses on a regular basis, it's, except for my accountant who knows exactly where his business is every day as far as financials, most business owners struggle to figure out where their business is at and what their capacity is. And I think one of the most urgent things that needs to happen is that people need to know what their capacity is, what their cash situation is, what programs are available to them. They need to know what they have capacity for. Do they have capacity to keep employees employed? Do they have capacity to Do they have work to keep people engaged? Do they have opportunities to invest in inventory that might be on sale right now, that they could then sell at a higher price and, you know, make some investments in the business? But if you don't know what especially your financial situation is, it's very, very difficult to make decisions moving forward, because we're going to make decisions now. If we don't know the financial situation, we could apply for a program that may not be appropriate for us, and we may have to pay that money back. We may decide to buy some inventory because a supplier wants to keep stock moving, and we may find out that we don't have the cash for that. So we really have to understand what the situation is in our business. How long can we operate without our doors being open? I was talking with somebody earlier saying some businesses, like a hair salon, they're really hesitant to open up because of all the restrictions. But the challenge is, can you afford not to open up? Can you afford not to take the precautions required, making yourself safe and your customers safe, but starting to go on to business? And I think that there has to be some understanding of where you're at. Furnace just noted in the comments that there's a cash flow calculator. And I think that checklist can be really helpful in understanding where you're at and what your capacity is.
I'll just maybe
Jill.
speak a little bit. Oh, sorry, Andrea.
No, you go ahead, Teresa. That was your, I
Sure.
was just going to share the screen maybe briefly to show that, but if you want to go ahead and talk about it, Teresa, and I'll share the screen.
Yeah, so Teresa Lafoy here from Sunrise Community Futures. I'm the business analyst at our location in Weyburn. And we have, I think, sometimes with this situation, it's almost like a circle of grief that people kind of were, you know, you're shocked, you're paralyzed, you don't know what to do. How do I take the first steps? You know, all of that whole mourning process, you're grieving and you're angry and you're frustrated. And sometimes the big thing is paralyzing and not knowing where to start. So, and there's so much overload of information and so many programs. We have put together a workbook, as Andrea mentioned, in Verna, that just is a little bit of a step-by-step, that if you as an entrepreneur are kind of going, I don't even know where to start, it just will help guide you with some basic information, a bit of a checklist and listing of programs. And we're updating that often as everyone is aware that things are changing almost on a daily basis. So we're keeping it updated so that you can kind of go through, okay, what programs have I applied for? What ones do I qualify? What am I getting from these programs? It'll address, you know, what my financial situation is from my business. What is my financial situation at home? Because we all know I'm not spending any money except on groceries. My grocery bill has gone up astronomically. But, you know, I think looking at some of those things as well, too, will really just help you move into maybe an action phase as well, too, if you haven't already. And again, addressing that whole circle in a way. Everyone is different. So you might see your neighboring business forging ahead and you're kind of going, well, gosh, they've taken off and springboarded much faster than I am. And you know, that's okay. This is not a time of being perfect. This is not a time of, you know, nailing your social media page because you haven't ever done it before and you're scared to. People are very forgiving. People are screwing up. You're hearing dogs barking in the background and babies crying and kids and internet not working, and that's an okay thing. So anyways, that's a little bit more than just the workbook, but I'll mute myself now.
Thank you, Teresa.
Yeah, thanks, Teresa. I think you're right. There's lots of things that can paralyze us. The overflow of it, to start thinking.
Oh, we lost you there, Jill. Oh, there we go.
So this is a really good indication of literally muting yourself and technology. but that's okay. I think we are in a world of, you know, professionally, we've gone from such a polished, you know, we're standing in the front of a room, in a boardroom, in a hotel, delivering something, and I think allowing a lot of grace is a pretty amazing takeaway actually from here. So if there is some positive notes, I think that's one great thing.
I think something that was shared with me the other day, a little saying, I'm just going to read that this is perfect timing for this. You know, and the saying was, with COVID, we're living in a unique moment in time. Our standard operating processes are out of the window. Expectations are low, support is high, and no one expects you to get it right. And there's no better time to innovate. So, but that's the key, is nobody expects you to get it right. They expect you to have those little bumps and hiccups.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's one of the good things about trying something new, and that's sort of the next step after you care for all of those things that are immediate. What's the next step? And I truly believe that momentum is a powerful force, especially for entrepreneurs. If we can make some small decisions and take some small steps forward, that can help us to make change in the business. And we're going to have to make change in every business. It doesn't matter if you're selling to consumers or if you've got a retail operation, if you're selling internationally. We're all changing what we do, and I think that we need to look at what the next best step is. And sometimes those things are apparent to us, but sometimes they're not. And one of the best ways I find to find out what that next best step is to connect with customers and suppliers. If you don't have a strong customer list, this is a great time to put one together, because you'll need it in the future. Because again, we're going to be going in and out of these isolation periods. It's great to be able to connect en masse with your customers, but also having that direct connection will allow you to have better business continuity into the future. So connecting with customers, really ask a lot of questions. How are you doing? What are you doing? How are things? What's changed for you? What are some challenges that you have? What are your problems in your business or your home? And really understanding what's going on with those customers. And you'll see a pattern emerge, and you'll see problems come up again and again and again. And then the challenge is that something that you can address or not? I've seen somebody called it the pandemic pivot, where businesses that were service businesses, maybe in, say, something that was very intimate with a contact, maybe they couldn't employ their people, but they decided to start doing deliveries for businesses that were doing lots of deliveries. So they completely pivoted their business model to address a need, an urgent need in the community. And that's okay in the short term, but that's not a long-term pivot, I don't think, for most businesses. So yeah, especially in smaller communities, there are things that are going to come up that will need to be addressed, and that's great. Then what do we do after that? And it's the little bit longer term, like 6-8 weeks. Now that we know what the plans are for opening Saskatchewan, we can start planning to see, does that fit for our business or not? How do we have to adjust? And if you know, like I said before, and Teresa reiterated, if you know what your business situation is, you'll know whether or not you can take advantage of that opportunity. Making a pivot to address an urgent need is one thing, but making a whole scale change in your business may not be the right thing long term. There's just an example that I wanted to share with you. Somebody posted online that company with a 3D printer was printing little handles to open doors so that you didn't have to contact them. And it's a little hook that you put your hand in, and then there's a hook to be able to pull the door. And it's a great idea. And somebody with a sign business might say, hey, let's get a 3D printer, and then we can start printing those things as well. And yes, there's demand in the short term for something like that, but is there going to be demand in the long term for it? And if you don't know your cash situation, you could put in an order for a 3D printer and then find out that you don't have the cash for it. So yes, there could be a short-term need, but does it fit with your business? And really understanding the best use of your cash will help you understand whether or not that's an opportunity for the short term that you can take advantage of, or something that maybe doesn't fit for the long term. So then the question is it a good thing to do right now? So being able to think through that process and say, okay, urgent need, short-term need, long-term need, and what do I need as a business owner, both personally and for my business, and what can my business bear? What's our capacity? So understanding those parameters will help you make those decisions and be able to take opportunities. Like I said, if you do have a good cash situation, you know that your retail business is going to open up and that there is demand. Maybe you've maintained some connection with customers through email or a Facebook page, and maybe one of your suppliers does have some inventory that they want to move. Then yes, you can take advantage of that because you understand you have the capacity, you have the long-term need, and you have the cash situation that can allow you to take advantage of those opportunities. So then, yeah, go for it. And the momentum that comes from making those decisions, even small ones, can help you to move forward through, like Teresa was mentioning, the grief and the shock and the change that's come to us so quickly.
Someone that community or Sunrise certainly we work with quite a bit is Ron Robichaux, and I'll put his website in our chat here. But he has a program called Nail the Numbers, and actually he was in the area in March just before this kind of all hit. So he has an item. It's from one of his sessions, and it's sort of a chart of determining if you should repurpose some products and services, and it's sort of that risk versus reward. So should you sell a new product to existing clients, or existing products, new clients, new product, new client, and the level of risk of course changes with each one of those. So it's sort of a good little tool to use to determine, in addition to your cash flow and that sort of thing, is there a market for the door handles or something like that, right?
Yeah, great. There are some really good tools out there, and I think, yeah, I know that Ron that you're talking about, and his matrix is really helpful to understand that for sure. The other thing that we have to think about though is that long term. And when I'm talking long term today, I'm not talking about 5 to 10 years down the road. To me, long term right now is the next 12 months. That time horizon has changed a lot in the last 2 months. But I think that we've seen lots of things change, and not necessarily for the worse. Things like doctors being able to make an appointment over the phone instead of having you come in to update a prescription or show them the scratch you got when you fell and is it broken. There's lots of innovations that are coming from this. Things like schooling, and that's a whole other webinar, but online learning, both for adults and for young students. And what does that mean for businesses? New business categories, the things that we don't do, or that we're going to do differently, like how do we receive our entertainment? I keep getting updates from Cineplex, where I used to go to a theater, and now I'm getting emails saying, hey, just download this on your smart TV. And it's amazing how we're consuming things differently. The whole idea of e-commerce and telecommuting, everything being done over the internet, how does that change things? And I think that there are going to be opportunities that come from this, like setting up video cameras in a doctor's office. who knew that that would be a thing that would be required? And what about the privacy? What about the issues around that? And so there's lots of good things that are coming from this change as well. Just for some examples, a school, private school, is creating curriculum that can help students move seamlessly from studying at home to studying in a school space, so that they don't miss a beat in their curriculum between homeschooling and the schooling that they get in the classroom. A local caterer here in Saskatoon, she called me the weekend that we went into isolation, that March 14th, 15th weekend, and she said, I don't have a clue what to do. Everything that I was going to be doing in the next month has been canceled. All the meetings I was going to cater, the Junos got canceled. I had a bunch of food ordered for that. What do I do? And so we started brainstorming. And first of all, she had some inventory she had to move. So I said, okay, what about freezer meals? Okay, perfect. She started making freezer meals and got rid of that. And then she started thinking long term, and she started offering special meals. So she offered an Easter dinner, and she figured out how many she needed to sell to take advantage of bulk buying from her suppliers, because she knew her numbers. And she sold out of her Easter dinners, and she dropped them off for people, and they just put them in the oven, reheated it on Easter Sunday, and it was all good to go. Now she's doing Mother's Day brunch, which was often, for most of us, taking our moms and taking them out for dinner. And so what I'm seeing now is, she said, not only are people buying it to celebrate the mothers in their own houses, but they're also, from a distance, purchasing the dinner from Calgary for their mother who lives in Saskatoon. So some really, really innovative solutions there. And it's a common business. It's catering, it's restaurant services, lots of options there. Hair salons dropping off color, asking clients to buy gift cards when they're like, I make appointments 3 to 6 months in advance, just so I get it in my calendar. And so whenever my appointments come up, I've always just called them and said, can I buy a gift card for that amount? And if you can't contact your customers, you can't ask for that. And even if most customers can't do that, at least getting 30% of customers to buy that gift card for a future use is still some cash flow coming in, and that can really help. So consider some of those things.
I know one of the things that's happening here in Weyburn is, of course, there's lots of social media posts and things like that. And someone started a page for local businesses to, share what they're doing. And then someone took it a step further and actually created a website and around gift cards specifically, and kind of thinking for Mother's Day. But and businesses can put their information on there free of charge. They've got some support from some other businesses and media and things like that for some financing. But yeah, just another great idea. The small business, or I think it's called BC Small Business, they are putting together something specific to restaurants and the food industry, so that they can all kind of work together as an industry, right, and support each other. And I thought that was another great example of just that pivoting and working together.
Yeah, there's just so many examples of that. And I think that it's just that creativity. And sometimes, especially like Teresa mentioned, in the grief and in the stress, and in, if we're concerned about family or close friends, we can lose that ability to be creative. So just even taking the step out of that and saying, what's my community doing? What are other people in my industry doing? And there are great industry associations, especially for retail, for hospitality. Saskatchewan has those resources. We have a provincial chamber of commerce. So if your own community doesn't have a chamber, there are other resources. And I think reaching out can really just start that ball rolling and give us that creative spark that we need to start looking for positive solutions and not just focusing on what we've lost.
I think
Absolutely.
that, and that's a good point that you made, Jill, and as well, Verna, on the comments side of things, that you can also kind of get to a ceiling of a cap as to what my creativity is, and reaching out to others, and it might be just the person that's across the street from your business that might be a really great initiative. And I'll do a shout out to Michael's Coffee in Carlisle, and who's just recently opened up in Esteban, and Ken King out of Carlisle as well too. They have a really great relationship where they'll actually sit down and kind of like brainstorm back and forth. And with that, I think it's really unique that you can help your own creative ceiling elevate a little bit higher when you've pulled somebody else in. They don't necessarily have to be exactly from your industry. They can be somebody else, but it just might be able to, it's like a bird's eye view, or somebody different coming in to say, it's like you try to talk to your teenager and you actually say to your like other friend to say, hey, can you talk to my teenager because they're not hearing me? And it's something like that that you can kind of connect with somebody, and again, stepping out. And again, I do believe there's people that are raising each other up right now. And that's really important to have those reach outs, because a lot of times people aren't going to say no. They're going to want to see that other business. We want to see our main streets successful and busy, and these businesses to keep on going.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other thing that I've been working with businesses on is thinking about what this new normal looks like, because so many of us are stuck in when it gets back to the way it was. But for the foreseeable future, that's not going to happen. So what is it that we need today that we didn't need 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago? And the for me, the catalyst of that is thinking about the things that we think we've lost. So what about sporting events? What about celebrations? For some businesses, it's what about sales opportunities, because we relied on trade shows or craft shows to have our customers gather, and those won't happen for at least another year, if not longer. So how do we get past that? Even things like mobility, resources for health, travel. Lots of us, I had two different trips this for May canceled, and they were leisure trips. They weren't business trips, but we exist in a province where people don't know a lot about their own province. Most of us keep to the bottom half of the flag, the yellow part where there's fields and that kind of thing. There's that whole green part that's up top that people don't know about. So and even there's lots of hidden gems. Donna, I worked with the golf course out in Yorkton, and they have a I forget what they call it. It's like a kick golf, where you kick the ball instead of hitting a golf ball, and like those are such hidden gems. And if they haven't connected with people, people don't know that they're around. But I think it's understanding what we've lost. And I collected some examples that I thought were really interesting. People that were doing online funerals, which sounds depressing. And in the middle of COVID, it's hard to talk about that. But in reality, there are lots of people who have celebrations that they can't get to, even before COVID. In Merrifield, my dad's cousin had her 100th birthday. You might have seen it on the news. There was a huge parade, and people were playing music out in front of her house, and people were dancing on the street, socially distancing, of course. But it was a great opportunity. But I also know her granddaughter in Edmonton wasn't going to be able to make it for the birthday party that they had planned anyway. So we're very spread out as far as families go now. So where are those people, and how will we have celebrations in the future, whether it's a celebration of a 100th birthday or a celebration of life to honor someone who's passed on? And there, there are things that we can learn from that, and maybe new business opportunities. Someone was telling me about a sign business. I have a grade 12 student. Apparently he's graduated, but hopefully he's doing his work every day. Um, in one community, they got a sign company to make signs for the grads. They had raised money for a celebration, but that wasn't going to happen. So they asked the sign company to make signs to put on the graduates' lawns in the community. And it was great because then, instead of seeing those grads in the local paper with their dresses and their suits on, at least there was some recognition of these graduates, and there might be something in the future, but at least it was something to help them not feel like their big event hasn't been forgotten. So a really good opportunity. I think that we've missed a lot, and we need to think about what good things can come from that, what business opportunities can come from some of the things that we've lost. I still have no answer for the sports question yet, but I know that everybody in my family would subscribe to whatever it is if there's some kind of competition they can watch on TV. So,
And
so a question that's come up, Jill, is that say you've got a business where you just see as an outsider or a customer or another business owner near them or across the street, you see the opportunities for them online, of course, because they need to be online, but they're offline. They're very old school, I guess. How do you get them to see what they're missing, or how do you get them to pivot to thinking in that different mindset?
that's a really great question. I think that Teresa mentioned a great situation where people have mentors. Going from an offline business to an online business can be very, very scary if you're not in that space. And businesses that have been online for a while, they didn't just go online and start selling everything in 6 weeks, right? It was a process over time. So to ask a business that has never done anything online to you jump that 2 or 3 year learning curve to get online, that can be pretty scary. But having a mentor in your community that you can reach out to can really help, because then they can share all of those learnings over that period where they became more familiar with using online sales tools and platforms and ways to connect with customers that can help expedite that process. But the other thing I think is looking for opportunities to see what other businesses are doing. And I'll give an example. A garden center near my in-laws. I've been following it because my mother-in-law used to work there, and they have really unique plants. It's in a very, very, very small community in central Saskatchewan. But they started out on Facebook a few years ago where they would show a couple of pictures. They have sort of a gift shop, and then their flowers when they were, and the plants when they were ready. So they started out on that a while ago. But what they've done is they've taken the entire shopping experience, except the smell. And anybody who's been in a greenhouse knows that that's just a wonderful sign of spring. They've taken that entire shopping experience and put it on Facebook. So they're doing Facebook Live videos and recording them and putting them on their Facebook page. And they're showing the plants, and they're describing them, and they've got hanging baskets. But not only are they showing people, the hanging baskets have numbers on them. So then the person who's doing the video will say, okay, this is basket number 8. And if you want basket number 8, just call us. We'll put it aside for you, and you can come pick it up when it's ready to go. Or call us or go to our website and do an online payment. And for me, those ladies, as lovely as they are, when I would go in, that greenhouse would be so busy, I never got to connect with them one-on-one. So actually the videos that they're doing are a great opportunity for me to learn about these awesome plants that they have and what will work in my shade or my different soil composition. And so actually the shopping experience is even better now, because I can get that information from them at my convenience. I don't have to wait for them to open up. I can just go to their Facebook page and look through, and see, the video for hanging baskets, or the video for bedding plants, or video for vegetables. And they've done such a great job, looking outside of your own community and to see what other people are doing that's creative and interesting can be really helpful. But back to Teresa's point about people being more forgiving right now, if you've been scared to do a Facebook video or a YouTube video or whatever it is, now is absolutely the time. And there are people out there, there's lots of, I've listened to, I don't know how many webinars about how to do a good Zoom call. And I'm learning that as we go, because I never used Zoom before 6 weeks ago.
Well,
And
I just wanted to say too that like some of those interviews that I've been doing, you talk several points. The businesses, it never ceases to amaze me how innovative they have become and how they have chosen to be on the positive side. And you also talk about making that pivot, and that's where I felt that my role came in a lot, is to help them do that, a very positive person. So like you said, talking to them, finding out, strategizing, well, what can you do? And I'm going to be posting one from Just Wake Wine next week, Aaron Keeley, and how he has taken his businesses right to the next level with that online delivery, or online and then delivery. So, and he said that he's taken his customer service to the next level, right? Because he's able to talk to that customer one-on-one. He's able to share online. He's able to deliver to their door and find out, what else is happening. And so the innovation from the small businesses, but those interviews that I'm doing is just what you're talking about. It gets them online, it gets an interview going, they talk about what they're doing, they're sharing with other businesses some of their points to help give somebody advice, and they've been very well viewed, like one, over 1,100 views just on the first one that we did. And plus for the YBID, it shows that we are caring in the community, we are out there. It's a new way to touch base with our businesses and communicate while we're being safe at home. So I'm really enjoying that.
yeah, yeah, I think that
Awesome.
there's some great opportunities out there, and we just have to give ourselves the opportunity to try. We're not going to be successful right off the bat. Um, we can't do the best YouTube video right away, but I'll tell you, the videos from that greenhouse are getting better and better and better every time I see them. And we just have to give ourselves the permission to make mistakes, and that's okay. And it is a steep learning curve. You bet it is. But just encouraging people to try is really helpful to your question, Andrea. And then I would say that looking locally for mentors would be a great idea. You said it before, what does a plumber have to learn from somebody who's in a retail business? Lots. And I think that there's great opportunities to learn from each other in our communities, but also reaching out. This has never been a better time to reach out to our communities of businesses that are not competing, but in the same industry as us, and find new ways of doing things.
And just kind of reiterating some of the things in the chat as well too. If I'm not sure if everyone's got that on, but this is a good opportunity for a business that, if you're tech savvy and identifying that your local retail store, whatever it might be, or I mean, really, it can be pie in the sky in a sense if you're tech savvy and approaching that business to say, maybe there's an opportunity for a small business to start to do some social media, to do some basic, what, you're a small butcher shop in a small town, you're swamped right now. And you may not have the time to be able to really focus on your social media page. Reaching out, maybe there might be somebody that can start that business. Of course, we know there's businesses out there already that do that type of thing. The other thing is to take a look again, understanding your numbers and being honest and humble about them, to say, like, maybe it is the opportunity to spend X amount of dollars on that social media page right now, so that you do have a platform. Because there are times where we need to look at our numbers to reel back. Maybe you don't need that Sirius XM in your vehicle right now. You know, hey, I'm a big fan of it, but you know, you need to cut where you need to cut right now. But maybe you need to say, oh, I actually need to spend the money in this category for me to stay, um, uh, I guess, you know, relevant right now is the big thing as well.
Yeah.
It's a good point on the cuts. One of my interviews was with LR Futures Lori Renton, and she talks about that, sitting down with her business coach. And one of the things that she says is that she just started to make the call, say, you know, I need to cut this and whatever. And they started, because they're in the same boat, and they started, like, her business coach said, oh, well, I can do this for half price during the COVID stuff. You know, so there is some give and take with everything. So you have to review your what you can and cannot pay for at this point. Like, you know, you need your cash flow and so on and so forth, getting back to that. But great point. Again, she talks about it, great advice that they're giving over these videos. Like, there's so much to share, it's amazing.
I guess I'm curious, you know, we have a lot of people on here, and we're all on, a lot of us are on silent or mutes, but you know, what are the wins that you're seeing yourselves in your businesses, maybe in your communities? Is there an opportunity to share? Because as we're saying, the biggest thing is to kind of take from some of those that are being successful, or what you're seeing. So I encourage everyone to share as well on this call.
Absolutely. And if you want to, you know, if you're not comfortable putting it in the chat to everybody, just change it, and you can just message me, and I can bring it to Jill's attention and bring it up for you.
I'll just share one success story that I've heard. A person I know in Saskatoon has a very small commercial cabinetry business. So they make cabinets for stores and schools and hospitals. When this started, they first of all looked for the health and welfare of their employees. And because they have a big shop, they were able to keep working because everyone was socially distanced. But they also took care of things that needed to be taken care of so that their employees would be safe. But what they also did was they reached out to the industry to understand what their customers' problems were, and they talked to suppliers as well. One of their suppliers is from Quebec, and at the time, Quebec shut down everything. They shut down their borders. They weren't exporting anything. So they're really stuck trying to get these jobs finished without this supplier from Quebec. Now, some of the customers understood that, and they were okay with a delay, because some of their projects were being delayed anyway because they had to limit the number of people on a construction site. But the other thing was that she also contacted friendly competitors, and they were able to work back and forth with these other competitors to be able to source some of the supply that they need, because they had a common supplier in Quebec. Then the other thing that they did was they really understood what the requirements were for safety on construction sites. So they were able to contact all of their customers and tell them, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing the other thing, to make sure that your employees are staying safe as well, and your construction site is able to stay open because everybody's following the rules. So that quick response to their customers, both in asking them what's going on, how is this affecting you, and then being able to say, we're following all the rules so that your site doesn't get shut down. That was a really big plus for their customers. And they've since actually got, since the isolation started, they've got 4 new jobs, because they were out talking to customers and acting quickly to make sure customers knew that they were following the rules and making sure that their employees were safe and that they were acting safely on a job site. So a really good success story, but it definitely took some hustle at the beginning to make sure that they were doing all the things they needed to do.
That's a great example. And I think now too, you can be sort of a leader in your industry, in your community, on your block. But if you, you know, sort of bend the rules or try to, you know, don't try to get around them, you're also going to stand out, but in the wrong way, right? And it's those ones that the success stories, the positives, those are the ones that people are going to remember and people are going to support and want to do business with, for sure.
Right. Were there some things that came up in the chat at all?
Yes, just you know, like Corey mentioned, e-commerce, absolutely. People that are businesses that move to e-commerce, they're going to be successful. And I just mentioned too that on the Community Futures Sask resource page that we're maintaining, there is a list of free webinars, and there's certainly a couple that are coming up on that e-commerce topic. So, you know, take the time to register for those for sure.
Yeah. Any other comments? I guess the other thing that I wanted to bring up was just, what does this mean for Saskatchewan? I think what we're going to see in the future is there's going to be some protectionism as far as made in Canada, sourced in Canada, because we've seen that our supply lines are so long that they're very fragile, they're stretched very thin for things like, well, a lot of inputs for a lot of businesses. For retail and service businesses, lots of their supplies come from China. And when China shut down, we didn't feel that right away because there was product in the supply chain. But now we're starting to feel that pinch. And yes, toilet paper was all the rage 6 weeks ago, but I think we're getting stocked up there. But and I don't think that we need to start making toilet paper in Saskatchewan, but I do think that there are going to be opportunities that come from this through buy local, even things like food supply chains. We've got local abattoirs and butcher shops that are staying in business because they have local supply of beef. There is that short connection between farm and plate that makes a difference. And I think that people are starting to think more about that and what that means, not just from an environmental standpoint, which was sort of the driver before COVID, but even now afterward. What are the things that we produce in this province, and what can we make that we could supply to the rest of Canada that we were importing from outside? I gave the example of at one other webinar of flax straw. Is actually, you can sterilize it. So what if you could use flax straw as an environmentally friendly stick for those swabs that we're using, that we can't get a hold of, that we're in short supply of? I don't know if that's really an option, but it's ideas like that that can take root at a time like this. And there will be government support for innovations. So I think that we need to start thinking about that. What kind of things can we do to expand current businesses to supply things that were supplied elsewhere?
Absolutely. There are some grants and other programs available for innovations. Also, you know, if you and it's on the resource page, but if you have a business that you can pivot a little bit or a lot and make some other things like that, there's some programs that the government has available for that as well, because the government is encouraging that, right, and needing that. So now is the time for sure to look at those innovations. Definitely.
Sorry, that was not a COVID cough. That was my I've been on too many Zoom calls cough. Any other questions that have come up in the chat? We're at an hour here, and I want to respect people's time, but I have time to take questions if we want to stay on the line.
Yeah, Corey has just commented that he's seen people who may provide a service at a cost. They've provided maintenance videos at no cost to help the clients and to keep relevant, so that once people are able to utilize the services, that company is top of mind. And for sure, that's a good example, definitely.
And for a lot of companies, those service videos or the how-to videos, those have been on the back burner for a while. And it's a great time to take advantage of the opportunity to do those projects that you maybe had put off.
Absolutely. Yeah, now is the time, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Great. Well, I think that Jenny from Sage Hill, you're going to post this recording, send it out to everyone who had registered. And there was also a presentation that I prepared with some of the notes from this call. So that will come along too. So that'll come out to your email. Anything else, Andrea?
Just wanted to again thank Jenny for all her work, and it was great to virtually meet and put this all together. And thank you, Jill, so much for taking